Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here. Recently I found out the local gaming store, Kastle, with a K in Sacramento, was running a Mordheim league. Mordheim is absolutely one of my favorite games, and so I went down there to check it out. Sure enough, they've got a small group playing games of Mordheim that's been running for a while, and I brought my models and was even able to get in a quick game. So this is the battle report that I'm bringing to you today. This is my brand new 1000 gold coin warband that I brought. The Angels of Morr, my undead warband based on my old Vampire Counts army. I set this up a long time ago after we finished our Warhammer Fantasy Escalation campaign, but I haven't gotten to use it until now. In the front we have Erich Draven, my Vampire. He's equipped with a sword and a dagger. To the right we have Ethrak Crowfather, my Necromancer. He is equipped with just a club and a dagger and has the spell Life Stealer. Short range spell, hard to cast, but does an automatic wound. Surrounding them, we have my three dregs. On the far left, we have Gustav the Watchman, equipped with a short bow, a club, and a dagger. Next to him, we have Hugo the Keeper, equipped exactly the same way, short bow, club, dagger. And on the far right, we have Fritz the Groundsman, with a spear and a dagger. In the back, we have 4 ghouls. I like maxing out on the number of models that can gain experience. So I took as many ghouls as I could. I put them into 2 groups of 2. One group is the Dwellers Beyond, the other group is the Shadows. I have 2 zombies, the Revenants, and finally I was able to afford 1 dire wolf, the Doom Omen. That comes to 12 models with a warband rating of 83. I don't think it's a bad starting warband. I think I got everything that I wanted. I usually like to keep my warband total off even divisibles of 4 because it allows you to take a few more casualties before you have to take a route test, but this is just the way the funding worked out and I'm okay with it. So when I arrived, the Mordheim group had just finished a big multiplayer battle. The shop was kind of close to closing, but I was able to get in a quick game, and the scenario was street fight, which is perfect. We just line up on opposite sides of a street and run at each other trying to drive the other one off. It's by far the quickest of the Mordheim scenarios. The downside is that I'll be facing this warband. It's a Dwarf Ranger warband. That warband was originally published in the Nemesis Crown expansion. I've never played it before, I'm unfamiliar with a lot of rules, I'm unfamiliar with most of the models. And I didn't have time to learn, so I'm going to be a little hazy on details as to what exactly is in this group. I do know that his warband rating is 163, so almost double what I've got. I'm almost certainly not going to win. My goal here is to pull down as many dwarves as I can, and then voluntarily rout before I take too many casualties in return. His warband is 13 models, which I believe must mean that he's got a halfling cookbook in there, because I think the limit normally for Dwarf Rangers is 12. The Dwarf Rangers warband is an expeditionary force led by a runesmith, and I believe that's his runesmith in the second rank on the left. He's got 2 dwarf troll slayers, there's an apprentice runesmith in there somewhere, I believe there's a longbeard that got turned into a hero, just a whole bunch of stunties. They are using a house rule in this campaign where only a third of your warband is able to be equipped with missile weapons, so he's only got 4 crossbows in the list. I don't mind this house rule. I don't know that it's always necessary, but it's certainly going to help me out in this scenario where I'm directly facing a long-range warband like the dwarfs. Also, as part of the special rules, the runesmith gets to strike some runes on particular pieces of dwarf equipment in the beginning of the game. He passes these rolls, and so he gets some bonuses to a piece of armor or weapon or something like that. I don't remember specifically what got upgraded. I don't think it makes a huge difference in the course of the battle, but I wanted to point it out if anyone runs into this warband themselves. Here's the table all set up with our troops deployed. We've got this long street with a bunch of terrain blocking off either side. There is an elevated area on the top that you can climb up to with the ladders and some walkways running overhead, and some bits of scattered terrain blocking up the street in between the 2 warbands. The dwarfs are arranged like this on the north with their crossbows in the front and their stronger fighters in the second rank. Since my missile weapons aren't particularly good, I've put my disposable chaff in the front. They're just there to catch crossbow bolts in the first rounds of the game, and my more valuable heroes are in the back. The dwarfs get the first turn, and since their crossbows are out of range, they all just move forward 6 inches like a proper Warhammer Fantasy regiment. Well, almost all of them move forward 6 inches. One of the dwarf troll slayers previously got a leg injury, and so now only moves 4 when he marches. My guys do not have as orderly an advance because we have a ton of different movement values. The zombies only move 4 and can't run, so they are left behind very quickly. The direwolf also can't run, but he moves 9 inches, so he actually inches ahead of people a little bit. The dregs, the ghouls, and the necromancer all run forward. They're 8, and the vampire hangs back a little bit. He can actually march a full 12 inches if he wants to, but again, I don't want him to be the lead element here. I don't want him getting shot. That's what underlings are for, so he's going to hang back a little bit. Round 2, and the dwarves still aren't quite in range of the crossbows, so again, a standard move forward, trying to get to that cover in a nice firing position. Round 2 for the undead, and we continue to see our forces spread out. It would have been nice if I'd been able to coordinate all my guys to hit the dwarf lines all at the same time, but I think speed is kind of the essence here. I'm certainly not going to stand in front of those crossbows waiting for the zombies to catch up. Anyway, the ghouls, 2 of the dregs, and the necromancer continue to advance straight up the street. One dreg, Hugo the Keeper, actually breaks off and climbs up that ladder to the elevated platform, trying to get himself a nice firing position. And my faster, more valuable elements in the vampire and the direwolf take cover over to the left. Dwarf turn 3, and with a shout of "Company, hold!" they all freeze in their positions, and the lead rank of crossbowmen open fire. And that's where I learn about Heimdall. All of his dwarfs are named after Norse mythological figures, which is awesome. Heimdall is a hero of some sort, and he has a crossbow ballistic skill of 5 and a nimble skill. So he's very accurate, hits pretty hard, and is fairly mobile for a dwarf. Anyway, Heimdall takes aim at the lead ghoul, manages to hit him, wounds him I believe with a crit, but fortunately the ghoul is only stunned. The other 3 dwarfs either fail to hit the advancing ghouls or can't get over their toughness of 4, and so we move on to undead turn 3. Right off the bat I have a decision to make. You can't pre-measure in Mordheim, but I'm pretty sure that my direwolf is within 18 inches of those dwarfs, so probably can charge someone. Again, it would be better if I held off on this and charged these dwarfs as one big group and didn't rush in there piecemeal to get chopped down. On the other hand, the more I wait, the more I get shot at, the more likely it is that people start dropping. And the direwolf has this really cool ability where when I charge I get double my normal attacks, and these direwolves in Mordheim are strength 4. So yeah, I'm gonna do it. With a howl, the direwolf charges one of the central, more ordinary dwarfs, but of course, as I expected, Heimdall the hero is within 1 inch of his charge path, and so he intercepts the direwolf. My injured ghoul rolls over to just being knocked down. The rest of my forces advance forward. You can see my vampire, Erich Draven, skulking behind the tower on the right. My dregs with short bows do take shots as they advance, so they're not running, but they're ballistic skill 2, so unsurprisingly they both miss. In the hand-to-hand combat phase, Heimdall passes his fear test, but the direwolf gets to strike first. 2 attacks, neither hit, both misses. That's too bad. And unsurprisingly, the direwolf is crushed in return. So maybe a little disappointing. If the direwolf had at least stayed alive for a round, I could have prevented Heimdall from shooting. But hey, I don't think I'm going to win this game, so I think it's worth the risk to get those hits in. Dwarf turn, and the crossbows have done their part. It's time for the warriors to step forward. So the crossbows split ranks and allow the tougher fighters to pour into the street. That means most of the crossbows aren't going to be shooting this round. The exception, of course, is going to be Heimdall, who hops up onto that box on the left, and because he has the nimble skills, can still fire. We do make a little bit of a mistake here. It's been a long time since I've played. We figured that since Heimdall is now in an elevated position, he can choose who he likes as the target of his missile weapon attack. Much later, I went to double check this rule because I thought, hey, wait a minute, is he able to target someone higher than he is? He is, but technically he has to be 2 inches above the ground level to count as being in an elevated position. And since that box is only like an inch high, he technically wouldn't have been able to do that. It wouldn't have changed much, but just for future reference. So what Heimdall does in the shooting phase is he takes aim at my dreg Hugo, who has climbed up on that elevated area over on the right, moving and in cover, but he still makes the shot and nails him with another crit. I think the crit is something relatively minor, like just ignores armor saves, but it doesn't matter because he rolls the 5 or 6 and Hugo is out as a casualty. Not only that, but the crossbow on the far right is able to fire because he didn't have to move to let through the warriors. He takes aim at the lead ghoul and hits and gets another crit. This campaign is using the optional weapon-specific crit tables at the back of the book, and so he rolls up the crit ricochet. So the crossbow bolt wings its way off the lead ghoul and hits the one to the left. Fortunately, that ghoul isn't wounded, and the lead ghoul is only stunned. So I lost a dreg and a dire wolf, but now all my guys are in charge range, so while I'm still not exactly confident, this could be a round where some things start happening for the undead. My ghoul at the back stands up, the ghoul in the front flips from being stunned to just being knocked down, and my 2 ghouls and Erich Draven charge the lead dwarf. Now 3 against 1 is a bit much for even a dwarf to deal with, so the dwarf warrior on the left goes and intercepts one of those ghouls, evening the odds a little bit. My necromancer and Gustav the Watchman, my dreg with the spear, aren't exactly enthusiastic about getting into hand-to-hand combat right away, so we're going to hang back a little bit. Gustav is going to protect Erich Crowfather, and he's going to try and use his cool Lifestealer spell. Fritz the groundsman only advanced, so he takes a shot with his shortbow and misses, and then it's time for Lifestealer. We're going to see if we can Shang Tsung one of these dwarfs to death, and I come so close. I need a 10, I roll a 9. I was targeting one of those dwarf slayers in the 2nd rank. Oh well, I'll get your soul next time. So my front line now gets to start tearing into these dwarfs, who I believe are Longbeards, the more elite troop choices, although I think one of them is a hero. We all get to strike first because we charged, and this is Mordheim, but we all miss. So that's 4 attacks from the ghoul, 3 attacks from my vampire, needing 4s. Just doesn't come up for me. The dwarfs have all passed their fear tests, and so in their return strikes, the lone ghoul fighting the dwarf is stunned, and Erich Draven takes a wound. Ouch. Back to the dwarf turn, the slayer on the left tries to take some heat off of that lead dwarf, not that he's having that many problems, and he charges the ghoul over on the left. Meanwhile, the runesmith rushes past the big scrum in the center and charges the knockdown ghoul that was hit by the crossbow bolt last round. The Dwarf Slayer, of course, is immune to psychology, so he didn't need to make a fear test. The Runesmith didn't have any problem passing his. A crossbow on the right is able to take a shot at my 1 unengaged ghoul, but he misses. And Heimdall standing on the box that Gimli never needed, he takes a shot at Erich Crowfather, my necromancer. Uh-oh. He does hit him, but fortunately Erich is a tough old bird, and he fails the 3+ to wound. Cool, I don't need to lose any more heroes. Over to hand-to-hand combat, and the hammer dispatches the stunned ghoul at his feet. The runesmith, although he hits automatically, fails to wound the knockdown ghoul in his combat. That's too bad for him, because of course if he had managed to wound, he would have taken him out automatically. And then back to the combat on the left, the Troll Slayer only has a strength of 3, but he has the Monster Slayer skill, which means that his strength automatically becomes equal to the toughness of the opponent that is fighting, meaning that he wounds on 4s, even so can't come up with the numbers and doesn't place any damage on the ghoul. Erich Draven is next up in the initiative order. 2 attacks with the sword, 1 with the dagger, misses twice with the sword again, but does hit with the dagger. Fails to roll the 4+ in order to wound the guy, just not doing real well. The ghoul does a little bit better. He's got 2 attacks coming in against that same guy. Needs 5+ to hit because I believe the person is weapon skill 5 and my ghoul is weapon skill 2. Even so, hits twice, which is amazing. Where were those rolls a second ago? Unfortunately, fails to wound, only strength 3. Finally, the hammer gets to swing back at me. Again, weapon skill 5, he's striking my vampire, only needs 3s, but he only gets 1 hit, and that is with a 3. I can try and parry with my sword, which Erich successfully does so. That's why I haven't been hitting, I've been fighting defensively for some reason. With that, we're back to the undead. We've lost a direwolf, a dreg, and a ghoul. That's 3 models, that's 25% of our 12. We go involuntarily rout. We're on a mission of revenge from the god of the dead, and we've realized, hey, these aren't the guys we're looking for. We don't need to engage in this fight. It would have been nice to have pulled down at least 1 dwarf, just to make me feel good. I could have hung in there another round, maybe, but the odds definitely weren't in my favor that I was going to cause more damage than I was going to receive, so I think this is a good choice. So over to the post-game, the dwarfs are just fine, obviously. They do great. My dreg, though, Hugo the Keeper, dies. Injury roll comes up as a 14. Got shot in the eye by Heimdall. Oh, poor Hugo, we barely knew you, and even so we probably didn't like you that much. The weird thing is that both the direwolf and the ghoul are more expensive than the dreg, and they both survived. so I guess that's just as well. I have 4 heroes still alive, so I get to roll 4 dice in the exploration phase. I get a 2, 3, 4, and 5, so no doubles, so no special finds, but it does get me 3 shards of Weirdstone, which I can sell for 60 gold. But the big news is that because the Dwarf Ranger Warband has a rating 80 above me, I get plus 2 XP to all my guys, so everyone earns 3 XP even though we didn't actually kill anyone or win the game. That means there's advances for everyone except for my vampire. Ethrak Crowfather, my necromancer, rolls up an additional skill which he decides to use to roll a new spell and gets reanimation. Cool, I can bring a zombie back to life. I wanted another spell because that life stealer is really short range, so I'd kind of like to be able to do something in turns where I'm not in position to cast that spell. Reanimation isn't ideal because it's kind of situational, but it's something, and plus it's easy to cast on a 5. As for the dregs, Fritz the Groundsman, the guy with the spear, gets a +1 toughness, and Gustav the Watchman with his shortbow and club gets an additional skill. Dregs get a pretty cool skill selection. They get combat and strength. I kind of want to keep these guys alive more than I want them to actually be good at combat, so I go with resilient for Gustav. That's a -1 to strength of attacks in melee combat. Yeah, I could have gone with step aside, but everyone picks step aside. I like the idea of this dreg being malformed in such a way that he's got this tough, resilient flesh. As for the ghouls, the shadows get +1 weapon skill, but the big news is that the dwellers beyond get Lads Got Talent. I get a hero ghoul. I have gone whole campaigns without getting Lads Got Talent on one of my good henchmen groups. So nice that this happens. In fact, not only do I get Lads Got Talent, but you then have to roll for an advance on the rest of the henchman group, and I roll it 2 more times. Of course, you can't take those, you have to roll until you get an advancement. The one I finally pick up is +1 attack, which is awesome too. So now I have a hero ghoul, I'm going to name him Facilier. He rolls up an advance and gets +1 weapon skill. Weapon skill 3, that helps. So that has definitely been an instance of failing upward. My warband came up against someone pretty powerful, didn't kill a single guy, and yet came out ahead. With my 60 gold, I go and put a help wanted ad in the newspaper for a new hunchback, so I replace Hugo the Keeper, another dreg with shortbow and club. I also buy a 3rd zombie, bringing my warband to 13. I figure if I've got the reanimation spell, I might as well make use of it. Get a bunch of zombies out there to get knocked down and hop back up again. And with a little gold left, I figure I might as well lavish more stuff on my vampire, and so I get him some light armor. Turns out he didn't like getting hit by a hammer. He would like to have some armor to prevent that in the future. So that's it for this game. Angels of Morr didn't do great on the battlefield, but they did great post-battle. Our rating is up to 117, so we're not going to get as big a boost again. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to keep going in this campaign. The games are played on Thursday nights, which is kind of inconvenient for me. If I do play again, I'll be sure to let you know with another battle report. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, observations, or concerns, and I will see you on the next one.